Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz Interview Series with jazz saxophonist and composer Jure Pukl. Born in Slovenia and now residing in New York City, he's busy promoting his newest 2016 Live at Thelonious album, and other albums are currently in the works. He's learned from the best at the Vienna Music Academy, the Haag, Graz Academy of Music, and at the Berklee College of Music in Boston. He has worked and learned with the best out there, and he's played with them. Branford Marsalis, Dave Liebman, Esperanza Spalding, Vijay Iyer, Tain, Watts, and he's done all of this while furthering his jazz that is a mix of modern jazz, avant-garde free jazz, and impressionistic contemporary music. This cat has already said a lot with his musical career and has much more to offer. So take a listen to his stories and dig this interview, my friends.
Hey, thanks for taking a little time out for me today. I appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for, thinking of me and doing this.
I love your music, man.
Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
It's an honor to speak with you. So I'm going to go ahead and start off here and ask you. You sound like you're a busy musician. Give me kind of a verbal snapshot of what's going on with you lately.
Well, I moved to New York City 3 years ago. Although I've been here, before, on and off since I think 2008 or something like that. I did a bunch of records here. But now I'm full-time New Yorker.
Right on.
So I'm preparing new projects. I just recorded 3 records this year. 2 are still due to be released, and one I recorded in Chile, where I was touring with some local musicians. Actually, 2 of them live in New York. So that's that one. Then one, we did a live record in Europe with my quintet that I'm co-leading with a trumpeter from Vienna, Austria. And we have the great Greg Hutchinson on drums for that one. And just recently, last week, we did a new record of mine with musicians from New York, Jonathan Blake, Matt Brewer, and Matt Nowak on piano. So that's a rough description what's going on right now.
It just seems like you're rather prolific. I mean, there always seems to be kind of a break between albums, and it just seems like you're going full tilt. Is there a script you follow with releasing albums, or is it just inspiration and you go?
I just kind of go with the flow. So sometimes there's a lot of things happening at the same time, and then there's periods where it's just less to do. In terms of recording and touring, so I try to practice as much as I can and get better and write new music. But it's not always easy because sometimes you get inspired, but sometimes you don't, right? So I just kind of follow my inner self and inner instinct and try to do as much as possible in a kind of way that where I still think that it's not too much or, over producing. Because, you can get into that just producing, but then the quality might be questionable. So I try to listen to myself and just go with the flow,
Well, and one of your latest albums, Live at Thelonious, and I'm curious, is there a softer spot in your heart for live performances than studio performances, or does it make a big difference to you?
I think it's kind of the same. I mean, definitely, when you go to studio, you definitely know you can do something again, right?
Yeah.
But then live is just that one time, right?
Yeah.
So the live recording or playing whatever has a certain thing that is kind of one time, and you can't really repeat things or do it better or do it let's do it again, or let's try this in another way. I mean, you do that before while rehearsing and preparing, but then once on stage, it is what it is, basically. But then when I go to studio, I try to think like that too, because mostly the first takes are the ones, we always do a second one, and sometimes we do a third one. But mostly the first or the second takes are the ones. So, that's spontaneous, being spontaneous and keep it fresh. I try to keep that in mind while recording in a studio too. So
I'm always fascinated by other regions of the world and how people get the jazz bug. In Slovenia, tell me how you grew up getting into music, and more specifically jazz.
I started off with a clarinet, and I was playing clarinet in music school, learning clarinet in music school. And then we have a big tradition of like marching bands, the big brass orchestras up to like 80, 90 people marching in town. And then, but our orchestra is also very high level, so we could play like symphonies or like wind orchestras. So I was involved into that first, and then I kind of wanted to quit music. It wasn't a big interest of mine. I was into skiing, sports. Then the puberty came, so I was like, clarinet, no, I don't want to play that. So I picked up guitar. I had a garage band. And then we were skateboarders, so I heard this band, I think it's called No Means No, that has a saxophone, in a rock setting. And I wanted to learn saxophone. I said, that's kind of close to clarinet. So they gave me this old saxophone in the summer, and I started to learn it myself. But then a teacher arrived, because there was no teacher for saxophone. My hometown is small town, so there was no teacher before, so I was his first student. And he kind of pushed me, and found that, that thrill in music in me. So I started practicing a lot. He said, well, Jure, this makes sense with you. Like, you have some talent. You should, if you really love it, you should keep going. And, you might go study music. So that's what I did. I moved to Vienna, and I studied classical saxophone. And I was involved into this funk band where we played, brass section, but not improvising really. So I was into people like Maceo Parker. So my dad went to Germany for a business trip. Because back in Yugoslavia, you couldn't get all the records, right? Yes. Just like that. It wasn't easy to get all kinds of jazz records from the USA. So I told him, bring me some Maceo Parker records. So he went to Germany, and he came back with a Charlie Parker record. And I was like, what is this? So I put it in, and I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible. This sounds so bad. I thought that, I thought it's really bad, because I was used to like a groove, steady beat. And like a strong, loud sound. And I thought, Bird is like, what is he doing? He can't even play this horn. That only lasted for like a couple of days, Yeah. And then I got into it, and, the rest is history.
Yeah.
My second record was John Coltrane's Africa Brass. My third record was Tangas with Joao Gilberto, Double Rainbow. So, really like the best of the best, basically, I would say. Bird, Train, and Tangas. I mean, what more could you ask? So.
Oh, yeah.
I finished my classical studies, and then went on to study jazz more focusedly, and went to Berklee. I came back to Europe. I was freelancing. I finished my master's degree in Austria, Graz. And I was living in Vienna for the last 7 years before moving to New York City. I was freelancing in Europe and playing all over the world, basically. And was making my bread with, playing jazz and improvised music, basically. And then one morning I woke up in Vienna and I said, you know what? If you love this, it's kind of, Vienna's not enough. So where are you gonna go? And the only move I could think of was New York City. So I just packed my things. Basically, in 2 months I was here.
So are you happy that you made that move?
Oh yeah, that was one of the best choices I made in life so far. For now, definitely,
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I always hear how enthusiastic Europeans and the Japanese and other cultures are about jazz music. And it's not a knock on Americans. It's just a different level of enthusiasm for the music.
Yeah.
What when you compare the audiences, what do you think between the American audience and the European audience? What's the big difference?
The audience in Europe is big and strong too. I mean, most of the people earn big money or better money in Europe or in Japan, for that matter. So there's a lot of festivals. There's a lot of clubs too. People love to go out. same as in U.S., but what I think the little difference is that maybe U.S. Audience has a little more background, right? A little more knowledge. So in U.S., when something's good or something's great, you get a nice applaud and you get a nice support. And they can go nuts too. They can go crazy, scream. As in Europe, sometimes it's like it feels like they're holding back a little bit, or you have to kind of do like even more, like to kind of move them in a certain way that Americans can like grab on right away. But that's not always the case. It's really like different also, like, Europe is different too. Where I come, I'm in the middle of kind of, between North Europe and then the Balkans. There's Austria on the north of Slovenia, and then there's Croatia and Serbia on the south of Slovenia. So that's kind of really different audience what we're talking about. And then if you go even northern, like Scandinavian countries, it's even different. People are more introverted or more like, they hold back a little bit. But I can also say for the whole U.S. because I wasn't playing all over yet. So kind of East Coast is my thing right now, but I'm going out today actually. I'm going to the West Coast. I'm doing California tour. So, I will be able to tell more after this 10 days of touring too. So, but I think American audience has a little more background in terms of history and, this music was born here and grew up here, and it's definitely people that know a lot about, jazz here. But as I said, so there are people in Europe that know a lot, and, there's European jazz.
Yeah, I dig it.
Yeah.
Speaking of learning and gaining knowledge, you've been at some very, very prestigious, very good schools, Vienna Music Academy, the Haag, Graz. You learned from George Garzone and Joe Lovano at Berklee.
Yes,
if you take all of these things that you've learned in formal environments, what have you taken away from your formal education?
Like you said, I had, I changed or I finished few different schools, first classical and then jazz. And I've switched 2 different classical schools, and then I did 2 or 3 different jazz universities. So I kind of really have the overview what school is all about, And as I talk now to younger students, they're like, oh, nothing's happening in school. It's so boring. I always tell them, well, school is just a school. It's just it's a building where they teach you how to do something in a certain way. But jazz is so open, and jazz is so, like it's music. So you can't put restrictions on that. And it's improvisation. So it's a whole nother level once you finish school and you come out of the school. So I always tell them, you have to do school if you want to be in a certain environment, but you have to do things outside of school. So I did my first record, I would say 5 years too early. But I'm happy I did it because I could start working. Or, that was the first step towards professional life, musician life. So I could start working. I had my ID, I could give a CD to somebody. I could give my, show my music. So I always tell the people, you have to be active outside of school. What you can learn in school is like the discipline, You have to finish certain assignments. You have to do this, but you don't want to do it in exactly that time, but you have to. So that kind of pushes you to discipline yourself a little bit. The second thing is, if you're at a good school, there's good players around it, or, if it's a city, big city where the school is, you will get to hear a lot of great people coming through that city and playing. So that's another good thing. And the third is the teachers. If you have great teachers, of course you're going to absorb that at the lesson, like when I studied with George Garzone, that was mind-blowing for me. It was like a shock first couple of weeks because I wasn't used to that kind of, teaching. the way he teaches is not a, it's not a school-based teaching. It's kind of life experience, whatever he has to show. Same with Joe Lovano. He's not going to tell you, oh, you got to practice this scale and you have to do this and then do this and then you're going to be good. No, he's just there, and he just kind of, you have to be able to find things in people, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter if that is at the school or on the street, hearing somebody playing, saxophone on the street. Even you even learn things from people doing it wrong. That's even something more strong that you learn. Like if you figure out what is the other guy doing wrong, or what is he doing that you don't like, and you go from there and you try to make it your own. So it's basically a combination of life and having your ears and eyes and everything open and being ready to, accept things and to absorb. That's what kind of makes you, makes you better or different from just being like a student, going to school, do all the assignments, be a good student, play everything right, but then, once the school is done, you're out on the street, and now what? So, school, yes and no. But the good things are, I was lucky that I've changed many teachers, so I always try to, because I never could focus on one, I had to do that kind of okay, let me find the best in this guy, take it and see what I can do with it. That's what I would say school gave me the most. So,
the one thing that I saw that was described in your website is that you're dedicated to modern interpretations of jazz, meaning you have a unique type of modern jazz, avant-garde, free jazz, and impressionistic contemporary music. That's a lot of stuff. How do you feel about that kind of descriptor for what you're doing?
I think I understand that as the writer who wrote that, or the critic, that he probably has a couple of my records, right? So if he only had my live at Thelonious from Chile, or only the sound pictures, I would say, how could he get something like this? But if he also has my Abstract Society records with Vijay Iyer and Damien Reed and Joe Sanders, or the previous ones where I do duo settings with a drummer and percussionist, which is pretty open, free, music, I can understand that completely. And well, I guess I just answered your question. I understand that, but I understand also that for somebody who doesn't know me and reads this comment or a quote, he could be like, wait, so he's just playing everything, or he's just all over the place? And I could say even yes. I love traditional jazz. I still practice standards or work on something, on certain songs. I still practice language. I still go back and transcribe, Ben Webster or somebody like that. But I transcribe also David S. Ware, or I'm hang out with Darius Jones, or, avant-garde people that do certain stuff. I'm really open-minded. I studied classical. I played guitar. I was in a rock band. I was in a funk band for years. Then I switched to jazz. Now my main interest is jazz and improvised music. But all my history, all my classical studies, are coming out. A good friend of mine, Steve Liebman, I don't know if you're familiar with him, alto player. We talk a lot, and he's like, yeah, all that, what you studied, what you went through, what you devoted time, is going to come out in a certain way, and you never know when. It's kind of like a, open book. And that's how I understand the quote, somebody who kind of follows my work and knows that I'm very flexible, and that I do more stuff, and that I show interest in different kinds of improvised music, jazz or whatever.
Well, you've obviously spanned a lot of different levels of jazz with musicians like Branford Marsalis, Esperanza Spalding, Vijay Iyer, Jeremy Pelt. There's a lot of people that you played with. What do you learn from them, and vice versa? What do you think they get from you when you all get together on the bandstand?
Well, it's hard to say, that Branford or Dave Liebman or Jeff Tain or, people that are on a certain, let's say, highest level of this art, I don't know if they learn something from me. They might. I should probably ask them, or you should ask them.
Sure.
What I learned from, or let's go to my peers, to people that are maybe more famous too, but they are on my level. Let's say, I think what they get from me is the energy, is the appetite for this music. You kind of have to have that appetite. You kind of have to be like right in. There's no, when it comes to like high quality improvisation in the moment, playing, you got to be there and you got to be the leader. At the same time, you have to be a sideman, I understand that really as a collective, there's no great, improvisation development without a great support of the other band members and vice versa. So I think, what I notice, people like my energy, people like my being in a moment, biting, and then when it comes to ballad, we do space and we try to do a vibe. So I think that's what they really appreciate, or I can see that they like that. What I learned from them is the same things. I love players who have integrity, who have like direction, who are strong in what they want to do and kind of pull me with them. I just love that, and it doesn't really matter what kind of jazz it is or music, as long as it's, strong and has a direction, has a meaning, has a, energy. I love it,
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but yeah, it's hard really to say what they learn. I guess, yeah, we should ask them. But like I said, we did a couple of hits with Dave Liebman, and it was my band featuring him, but when we rehearsed, I just saw that he's so strong that, we started rehearsing, and he said, well, let's do this here, and let's try to do, and then once after we do this, we're going to develop that, and maybe we'll go into that. Once I felt that what his intention and his being so strong in music and what he does and the experiences through the years, I just let him do the whole thing, like rehearsing and everything, which it was more learning experience for me, I would say. But again, if we'd ask Dave, he would, tell you better.
Yeah, sure. Well,
yeah.
The one thing that's good that I've noticed about you is you're well traveled. Not only have you come from Europe to America and back again, you've toured extensively through Europe, through Asia, through the United States. What does travel do for you as a musician? How does it enhance your voice?
Well, I think every time I come back home or come back wherever I am at the moment, when I come back from touring, playing, I feel a richer person, richer for the experience of traveling, and then richer for the experience of, collaborating with different musicians on the road. It's really trying to understand wherever, last December I was in Japan. And it was my first time in Japan, and I used some local musicians for certain gigs, and the level wasn't that high as once you live in New York, everywhere you go the level is lower, right?
Yeah.
The overall level of musicians. Once you live in New York, you're just used to the highest level, musical level. So it's really hard to go outside of New York with getting local musicians and expect that it's gonna be same as in New York. That just doesn't happen. But you have to be smart how to pull out the best out of musicians. So all this traveling, it's a learning experience to get to know myself better and how I react and how I kind of pull out the best out of musicians that I'm working with at the moment. And, that's really something that it's so unique. And you have to learn about yourself in an environment that doesn't even come close to your own language and culture and tradition. So meaning in Japan, I had to deal with myself and then I had to deal with their, level of musicianship, level of musicianship, culture, language, and tradition,
Yeah.
So all that together kind of shapes you as a person, you know. It kind of makes you stronger. Makes you more aware. Makes you more. You recognize things you learned in the past, but you weren't really conscious about them. But once you travel and then you remember certain situations, you become just more conscious about certain things that happened in your life and that shaped your, you know, personality, basically. Because, you know, I believe music is a personality, you know. The way you are, that's what's going to come out of your horn or, you know, strings or sticks.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, the one thing, too, is that you've been pretty good about winning awards over the years, and I'm not going to ask you what your favorite award is, but I want to know which award surprised you. You didn't expect, that just kind of blindsided you.
Certainly the last award I got in Slovenia for, it's kind of the highest award for contribution to arts, you know. I kind of didn't expect that because there were 2 jazz musicians in 45 years that got it. One was an older arranger that was kind of really good friend with Quincy Jones. He passed away a couple of years ago, but he was a great arranger, big band conductor and composer, also piano player, but he was more like a leader. He got it 35 years ago, I think, and then another drummer got it 11 years ago. And now I got it, and that was really, and I'm the youngest of, you know, from all of the 3 of us. I was kind of really surprised about that, you know. I didn't expect it. I didn't even think of it because they gave it to 6 people, and it's not just music. I mean, music is almost kind of the last. It's more like poetry, painters, you know, different artists, dancers, also music. But then music also has like classical, popular, and then jazz. So I was kind of really surprised by that, but you know, that they want to give it to me. Honestly, it was the best award I got because it kind of gave me that recognition. I never, if you do this music, you never can think about like really earning big buck and, I don't know, becoming rich. If that's your goal, then probably you should do something else, right? So that award kind of gave me the confirmation that I'm on the right path, that even I knew that I'm on the right path for myself because that's what I love to do. But then if other people notice that, you know, and your own country notices that, you know, it's just beautiful. And another thing, it's a beautiful award for my parents, let's say. I mean, they went through so much with me being like, with me moving around and like, you know, changing my mind. No, now I'm going to do this. Oh, I'm moving to there. You know, I moved so much that my mom is like, oh, where, you know, I don't even know where you live anymore. And, you know, also they didn't grow up with jazz. So, you know, they always supported me. They never said no, but I could see their, you know, worried faces sometimes, like, you know, well, how you think you're going to be okay, you know, now to New York. But once I got that award, I could just feel my mom being like, you know, calm and proud at the same time, like, oh yeah, you know, he's doing something good. So I think that's the award that kind of means a lot, you know, in like overview of my life. But I'm happy for any award, but I'm not really working for awards, you know. I'm doing music because I love it. And
so of all your jazz heroes, everybody that's influenced you, your first albums from Bird and Coltrane, if you could go back in time and see a musician live, who would you want to go see?
I definitely, you know, can't deny Bird, Tain, and Stengatz as being my first, you know, those were my first records. So I really listened to a lot of those 3 guys. Once I got deeper into music, Wayne Shorter is my kind of jazz role model, you know. It's really amazing what he does composition-wise. He was involved into, you know, all the main bands in 60s, 70s as an artistic director, as a writer, as this or that. So if I had to, I don't want to pick one because I don't like that idea that, you know, you're kind of crazy about one guy or one thing. But if I had to, I would probably say Wayne Shorter, you know, is something that I just respect so much from being like composer, player. Yeah, if I had to, that would be way shorter.
Why do you love jazz?
Being spontaneous in a musician setting, you know, in a music setting or a music environment. I just love music itself already, not just jazz, but all kinds of good music. But jazz just gives me like the most thrill and the most like excitement while performing, while playing. I also believe it's a kind of you know, thing that it's always against the politics and regime and whatever it is, you know, that is happening. You can express yourself in that kind of matter. I always feel we're a kind of like, how should I put it? We're kind of like, I don't want to say different or better or worse, not at all. I'm not saying better or worse, but we're kind of like a release in this crazy world we're living, you know?
Yeah.
People go out and hear you and kind of forget about everyday struggle and things that are happening right now, and it kind of connects all nations. It's a global thing, you know. It's not just, you know, it's not just certain people's music anymore. It's global, you know. It's a language that a lot of people understand, and it's music that also asks from you, you know, for a certain focus of listening as a listener. You know, more focus. It's not just entertainment music, but it's also entertaining. So all that stuff together, you know, that's why I love jazz and improvised music. I mean, nowadays it's much more open than just saying jazz, you know.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this. This is my final question. Everybody has a version of who you are, your family, your friends, those that you perform for, but who do you think you are?
Well, that's a hard one. Well, I still think I'm a small town guy from Slovenia, you know, who just wants to swim with the sharks when it comes to music. So that's why I moved over here. But, you know, I think of myself as somebody who loves this music and devoted his kind of life and love towards that. And yeah, hard to say more about myself.
No, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
I think that kind of sums things up. Hey, thank you for taking a little time out and opening up, giving me your story, and most certainly thank you for all the great music.
Oh, man, thank you for being so kind and, you know, reaching out.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Slovenia, New York, Kansas City, and spots all over the globe, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Jure for his time, his honesty, and all those stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store, or visit theneonjazz.blogspot.com for all things Neon Jazz. Until next time, enjoy the music, my friends.
Neon Jazz.